Hello and welcome to That VidBlaster Guy. I'm Tom Sinclair and I'm glad you've taken the time out to join us today. I hope this show will be beneficial to you. We've got some really interesting things to talk about, but I want to wish you a new year. This is our first show of the new year, and it looks like it's going to be a really interesting year. Lots of rumors popping across the pond from Europe to the U.S. talking about what's going to be happening with VidBlaster in the next year. I did some experimenting on my own this morning with VidBlaster, and I'm going to bring you the results of that in just a minute. But wanted to tell you, if this is your first time watching the show, number one, if you're watching live, we hope you'll join the chat room and chat with us as we go about the show. Sometimes you'll see me get a little distracted because I'm trying to read a note of somebody saying something or asking a question. But you can do that very simply. The instructions are right there above the screen. If you're watching us on YouTube, we hope you'll join in with us live on Tuesdays, 3 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock London time. And all these shows are available in the archives. The show is based on the premise that one guy with one PC, not a room full of PCs, can do a really awesome broadcast. And thanks to a lot of help from a lot of friends, we are getting to the awesome broadcast part. And it's been a lot of fun. My hat's off to all those folks that have joined in. Martin Kay with the graphics behind me that are our green screen, and all of you that have been guests last year. We really appreciate that. We'll have those in the credits at the end of the show. The main part of our show today is going to be about a minimal system. So many times when we, at least when I go out there and look and talk to people about what they're doing, they want to do 4 cameras and HD and put it up on a big screen and record, quadraphonic stereo. I don't know. I'm just making that up. But you get the idea. People generally start out with a huge concept of what they'd like to do, and sometimes they'll have the budget for it. But today's show is for folks that don't have a huge budget, that would love to broadcast a community event, maybe their child's sporting match, their soccer game, maybe a city council meeting. Maybe they'd like to set up something for their business and begin to start their own weekly internet talk show. Why not? It's a lot of fun. But do you need thousands and thousands of dollars worth of equipment to do that? I don't think you do. I think that you can do a darn good broadcast for not a lot of money. In fact, my contention is that you can do it for less than $1,000 US. And if you've got some of the equipment on hand, maybe even half that. I started out today and put together a little package of equipment. And let me see if I can bring up the video that I made of the equipment. Bear with me on this one. I'm not quite sure why we got a black frame around. But let's start here. This is a Dell 1521 laptop. And it has an AMD dual-core processor in it, or whatever that processor is. It's not a blazing fast PC. And I've been using it for several years in my business and when I go on trips, and it's sort of the laptop that hangs around and I use whenever I need a laptop. The system that I'm running right now, my broadcasting rig is a little bit bigger and less mobile, but there's nothing like a laptop for mobility. So we've got this great little laptop that sort of is the base for the system that we're talking about in this minimalist rig. The next thing we've got is a camera. And this is a Canon Vixia HF100. Now the Canon Vixia HF100 in its day was probably a, I don't know, a $500-800 camera. These are available now, today, on eBay for $200. And this little rascal is HD, 1080p, I guess. It does HDMI video out. It does component video out, although not using either one of those with my minimalist setting, with my minimalist system. I'm using what they call on the back of the camera AV out, which, if you can see there, the little yellow port right down at the bottom, in there plugs a cord that splits out to a yellow RCA for the video, and then depending on the cord, either red and white or just red for audio. Now, we're not using audio on this thing at all. We're just using it for video. I've even used, okay, so we're talking about $200 here. I've even used some old Canon GL1 camcorders that I got in a box from somebody that was selling them because the tape drives didn't work. I've got a Sony PD150, a great 3-chip standard definition camera. Again, bad tape drive. Was able to pick it up for a song. So if you don't have something in your closet, and how many folks have got 3 of these in their closet? If you don't have a camera in your closet, you can pick one up off of eBay pretty inexpensively and probably get something that will future-proof you a little bit in terms of moving from standard definition to high definition. Now, our rig today, our minimalist rig, is based on standard definition. We're not going to do high resolution at all because, again, we're starting with just a laptop. So let's go back to our little setup vid here. So there's our cam. And our rig today is actually using 2 of those cams. So you figure $200 plus $200. I also picked up a couple of inexpensive tripods, and you'll see in a minute why those come in handy. I'm actually in a church environment doing this video, so the tripods will make more sense in just a second. We've got a very inexpensive, this is the Behringer X502 mixer. It's not big and fancy. It's inexpensive. I was looking on eBay today, I think $40 for this little rascal. And that's buy it now. Yeah, it's probably used, but it's got everything you need for a minimalist setup. It can take an XLR mic, and it can take several instruments, or VCR, DVD. What I was using at the church this morning, I was actually taking the sound from the in-house soundboard and just bringing it in over here on line 2 in a balanced cable. So an inexpensive mixer, $40, you've got a mixer. Mixer's nice to have because VidBlaster is designed to use a mixer. It's not designed to plug a mic into the side of the PC. There just seem to be a lot of issues with that, primarily because it means you have trouble if you want to play a video, because VidBlaster wants to send that audio out to something and then have the audio come back in the mix to be included in the recording. So we've got our mixer, and then we'll move on to the Behringer UCA 202. Now, this is not necessary, but it is wonderfully useful. The benefit to this is it allows you to take, where's the other end of the cable here? It allows you to take a USB cable, plug it into your laptop, and have very easy access to stereo in and stereo out. So essentially, we have a portable sound card. And I have, in fact, I'm using one right now in this show. I'm using the red one, the UCA 222, I think it is, or 212. The only difference with that one is it's a red color and it comes with some bundled software. But this guy's about 30 bucks on eBay. And it's not necessary. You can do an out and back with several pairs of cables to your laptop, but this just makes it a lot easier, and I think gives you a little cleaner setup, and may even resist a little ground loop, although, you know, Mike Phillips will have to register on that one. Maybe he can tell us. Let's see. Let's keep on going with our little portable studio tour here. So we've got the UCA 202. We're going to need tons of, I say tons of cables. We're going to need a frame grabber. Now, there are a couple of options for a frame grabber. There's the good old Easycap. You can get these rascals off of eBay for 10 bucks. There's really a special one you want, though. That's the thing. Golly, I should have written down the numbers. I'll put it in the show note, because there's a particular chip inside this guy that you want to look for, because that will allow you to use more than one of these at a time if you're buying them off of eBay. And Easycap has sort of been cloned multiple times. This one, as you can tell, is a little dusty. It's been sitting in a box waiting for me to need it. I haven't needed it because I've had 3 others. And more recently, I've discovered the Easycap .TV, the Model 116. And that one, let's see if we've got a picture of it here in our little portable studio tour. Yeah, there it is right there. And it does the same thing. It's got audio in and out. It's got S-video out. Excuse me, not audio in and out. It's got audio out, audio in, S-video in, and composite video in. And we're just going to set it up here in our tour for a composite video in. And we've actually got 2 of them, so we can use more than one camera. Now, my experience has been that with the specific Easycap, and again, I'm going to have to put the model number in the show notes for you, as well as the Easycap.TV Easycap, that you can use more than one. In fact, more than one, or sometimes as many as 3 or 4 on the same PC. Now, it is a USB-based device. So being USB, you want to be careful not to load up a USB controller. Now, don't be confused, because a USB port is not the same thing as a USB controller. A controller might control 2 ports. So if you plug 2 cameras into 2 ports controlled by the same controller, you may not get a good smooth picture, because the controller simply just can't keep up with all the processing, all the video. So you may want to experiment with that. On my particular PC, the little laptop you saw a second ago, there are only 4 ports, 2 on the back, 2 on the side. So that was pretty easy for me. I figured, well, if we're going to have controllers, they would be split up, one for the back, one for the side. So I split my video up there, and it worked just fine. So that's, you know, I'm not fancy. It's trial and error, a lot of it. So that's the end of our little studio tour right there. And that's the equipment. So we're talking about an inexpensive laptop, and that exact laptop, that particular one, was a Dell 1521. Found it on eBay, where are my notes, today for $300. So we've got $300 right there. We've got 2 of the Canon HF100s at $200 a piece if you wanted to go out and buy them. And the Easycaps are about $30 or $35. The Behringer mixer, I'm sorry, I told you it was 30 before, it's really 40. And then the UCA 202 is 25. You know, assuming that you can get all that with no tax or no shipping, we're talking about $795 if you had to buy all that. Now, I'm thinking that you've got probably a video camera in your closet somewhere, and it may have had some of these cables that came with it, and you just didn't know what they were. You've probably got a laptop. Now, a Pentium laptop, you know, a single core processor is probably not going to be able to do 2 cameras, but it might do 1. You'll have to play with it. And again, resolution has a lot to do with it in terms of the camera processing power, and we're going to get into that in just a second. So for less than $800 US, if you had to buy everything, you've got the whole shooting match. Now, I guess we're talking about, you know, cables and the little tripods. I think these tripods, again, eBay, this was $12 or $15. And for a church setup, it's perfect because it can sit on a countertop or some other place kind of out of the way and is not big and intrusive. And in a church situation, for the most part, your shots are static shots. That is, you're not panning and zooming a lot. You're setting up shots in advance and then just switching from camera to camera. At least that's been my experience. So let's put all this together and let's see what it looks like in a church environment. Now today, I came right into folks, you can see her in the background vacuuming. They're getting ready for a funeral on Thursday. And so I was sort of in the way, so I didn't get to do everything I wanted to do. But you can see the laptop there in the front. You can see a camera above it and to the right sitting on the countertop there. You can see the UCA 202 to the left of the laptop. Just behind the laptop, above it and to the left, you can see the Behringer mixer. And that is connected to the big Yamaha, the big blue mixer on the left there. And so it's taken the output from the mixer. That is, everything that's in the church mix is going into the my little Behringer mixer. And so, you know, whatever is being whatever is audible to the system is going into the mix. Let's see, let's put this video into motion and see what we can see here. What I've got right here is basically, oh, by the way, I did this video on my camera, so the quality is not going to be real great. Couple things that you need to know. Obviously, I've only got 2, 4, 6 modules, so this is a demonstration of the fact that you could probably do a 2-camera minimalistic shoot with VidBlaster home version. Remember, the home version limits you to 7 modules. So you can do a 2-camera shoot and have audio and even have 1 module left over as a video overlay or something like that, and do that in VidBlaster. The modules that I've got there on the screen, top right-hand corner, of course, is the program module. That's the shot that's going to be broadcast. To the left of that is the audio module. Directly below those 2 pair of modules, the recorder module, the streamer module, and 2 camera modules. Now, I use the streamer module in this example because the video out module, which I would prefer to use, is not available in the home version. So this is everything, the least expensive version of VidBlaster will run on this setup. So I've also added, just on the screen here, so that you can see the CPU monitor, and you can see the CPU monitor at this point is just pegged out. But I checked the video and it was smooth and the audio was strong, so it doesn't seem to be a problem. Oh, you know, the other thing, oh yeah, there's a good shot of the UCA 202 on the left. That's the silver one, and that's the USB sound card. So it's got an input coming into it from the big blue mixer that belongs there at the church. And then it's got an output going to the mixer. So we've got 2 inputs to the mixer, 1 through USB and 1 through the sound card. All right, let's move on a little bit there. We can see the, oops, see if we can go back just a tad there. There we go. Tripod, minimalist approach. Now, I do have a big tripod right there set up on some chairs so that we could get a good shot from some height. Obviously, if you're doing this in a church situation, you can't do it like that. But there can be some other ways. I've used, and I wish I had it here with me, but I've had some IP camera mounts, and they have the same thread. I think this is a 3/8" thread on those, and the IP camera mounts can be attached to the wall. They can be attached to a block of wood that can be attached to something. I've used Velcro, I've used duct tape, I've used zip ties to attach those things. And if your camera doesn't weigh a lot, you know, there you go. You're set. In fact, here in my studio, I've got one of these that is zip tied to a post that some of the lights are hanging on to, so I can get a side shot at some times when I want to let folks know what things look like here behind the scenes. So there are lots of ways to hang the cameras, but I wanted to get us some height right there so that we could see what was going on in the sanctuary. So we've got the 2 camera setup. We've got our Easycap TV device and our other Easycap device, and they're both plugged in USB on the laptop. And I should have set up a couple of weeks ago. I did the little magic screen where I could put arrows on the screen. I should have set that up for today. That would have been perfect for what we're doing right here. But I didn't think to set it up in time. So let's go back to the screen. And I think I've got a shot of Flash Media Live Encoder here. Yep, there we go. And you can't tell because the text is too small, but I've actually got Flash set up to stream, or actually VidBlaster set up to stream at what's called half SD resolution, widescreen. So in this case, that's 428 by 240. I had played initially with 640 by 360, which is a little bit larger, and so gives you a little better resolution. And VidBlaster pegged out immediately when I started recording and streaming through Flash all on the same PC. Again, keep in mind it's just a little dual-core elcheapo laptop. And so I reduced the resolution. And what I found as I looked at the stream was that since most of the shot is a static shot, that is, the chairs are not moving, the walls are not moving. In fact, there probably would be very little action in this shot. Since it's a static shot, the pixels don't change as much. And so the difference in resolution is not quite as noticeable. Now, if this were set up for football, I would, or basketball, a fast-moving sport, I would probably say that this little laptop that I was using probably wasn't enough, or maybe I would just limit myself to one camera in order to try to make up the difference so that I could stay kind of under that headroom. I don't like pushing VidBlaster to the red line. But in this particular case, it worked. How long it would have given me a good stream, it's hard to say. Let's see, let's go back to our video here and see what we got. And there's just changing cams. We're just clicking on the module to change from one cam to the next cam. Nothing fancy at this point. Not trying to demonstrate how to do overlays or how to, how to put graphics on the screen or hymns on the screen. This is just a very basic, minimalist setup that allows you to do a minimalist approach, but it's an entry point. It's a get your foot in the door kind of thing. So again, we're talking about really inexpensive, easy to come by equipment. My guess is that if I were to go out shopping on eBay and I did more than spend 10 minutes looking up the first price I could find, but set my price points of what I was willing to pay, that I could have purchased everything on my list for about $600. But I'll tell you, in my closet, right over here, I've got 3 video cameras that I owned before I started doing internet broadcasting. And 2 of them I've used in broadcasting. One of them is an old Panasonic. It's low resolution, 320 by 240. So it's not something you would want to use as a main camera. But I used it in soccer and duct taped it and zip tied it to a post behind the soccer goal. So it's right behind the goal. And as you can imagine, it took some abuse. It got pummeled a time or two by an errant shot of a soccer ball and lived. But it was sort of a sacrificial camera. I knew that sooner or later it was going to get mangled, and that was okay because it wasn't worth anything to me except for what it was doing. But it was a great way to get a really interesting shot, and it wasn't a shot that you would spend a lot of time on, so the lower resolution wasn't as noticeable. You know, a big part of this discussion for me is what is the viewing audience? What are their needs? What are their expectations? Because I think a lot of times folks are saying, oh, I want to look like ESPN. I want to look like ABC. I want to look like BBC. I want everything to be crystal clear and perfect. And consider your audience. Your audience is, if you are doing a, let's say, a sporting event, for example, ESPN is probably not waiting behind you to broadcast that sporting event. If you don't broadcast that particular event, church service, sporting event, those kinds of things. If you don't do it, it won't be done. And so the audience that would have been able to see it had you done it would not be able to see it if you don't. So I think they're a little bit more forgiving of things that aren't quite perfect. Boy, I broke the #1 rule of broadcasting right there. Forgot to turn off my cell phone. So my apologies. And let me make sure I get that ring all the way down now before it's too late. Sorry about that. Live TV. Where were we? We were talking about audiences. So the audience is going to be a little bit forgiving. Now, my experience has been that they are going to be most forgiving with the video. If the video's a little choppy, if the video's a little pixelated, they will probably endure that because they have a vested interest in watching whatever it is. I mean, they had to go to their computer, they had to click on a link to get to the show, and so they've got a little bit of a vested interest in it. It's not like they're just channel surfing in their Barcalounger. So they're really interested. They probably know somebody that's in that broadcast, and so they want to participate. What they're probably less accepting of is bad audio. All this time we spend on the video part of it, and really a lot of times, and Mike Phillips he's got me singing in the choir on this one now. It's the audio that really communicates much of the message. If the audio is good, if it's clear, if it's easy to understand, if it sounds real, then people will be more forgiving if the video's a little off. But if the video's good and the audio's bad, crackles or skips or just bad quality, I think you'll find your audience much less satisfied. So making sure that you've got good audio, and again, it's keeping it really basic. The setup that I showed you might even be too complicated by using that UCA 202, but I just like to use it because it makes things easier for me. But doing good audio will make your video broadcasts more effective and more enjoyable for the user. Now, again, we're talking about a minimalist setup, so we want our audio to be as good as it possibly can. A big part of that when it comes to sports is going to be the microphones. And, I am a babe in the woods when it comes to microphones. My knowledge can be fit in a thimble. But to break it down at my level, which is pretty basic, we've got condenser mics and we've got dynamic mics. And for the most part, my experience with a condenser mic is, boy, you turn on a condenser mic and you're going to hear everything. You're going to hear a needle drop if it's in the same room. You're going to hear all the background noise. A dynamic mic doesn't require that. But again, my experience was, hey, I could get a lot of condenser mics, the headset types, for $25 and give it a go. And I found out that my audience was really kind of actually a little interested in the background noise, because they kind of got a little, it wasn't using their eye, but their ear, but they could kind of hear behind the scenes as the director would give instructions to the camera person as people moved in and out of the room, guests that were preparing to speak. And so it added an element of interest to it. Not very professional at all. No, I agree. Not very professional at all. But my audience, when I did soccer, found this sounded pretty interesting. As we moved to dynamic mics and we were able to cut out a lot of the background noise, it sounded much better, much more professional. The mic that I'm using for this show right now is a condenser mic. It's a Audio-Technica AT897 or something like that, and it picks up, even though it's a shotgun mic, it does pick up a lot of ambient noise. For those of you that watch the show regularly, you know that the postman comes right about this time every afternoon. And so I have to lock my dogs up in a different part of the house, or else you'll hear those little yappers hollering at the postman as he comes. He actually came earlier today, so we didn't have to worry about that. But the condenser mic will definitely pick up a lot more audio. And generally, condenser mic will need a power source, either phantom power, which is not available. Whoops. Phantom power not available on this little mixer, but is available on the big mixer that I'm using here in the studio. Or a lot of times they will come with a little power pack powered by a 9-volt battery or something like that will put just enough voltage into the line to carry the audio signal. But dynamic, if you've got the choice and you've got the budget, you definitely want to go with a dynamic mic, depending on the situation. You can spend $500 on a professional sports broadcasting headset that has the right kind of mic in it. But that's not where we're starting. We're starting at the very basics. I bought a Yamaha. I should have pulled it out of Yamaha. I think it's an LP500. It was $49, and it's a great, comfortable headset. But it's got a condenser mic, and so it picks up a lot of that ambient noise. But it was great for sports broadcasting. Let's see. I want to check with the guys in the chat room and see if anybody in the chat has had any questions that have bubbled up for them as we've gone through this, because I've pretty well gone through my spiel of, if you're just joining us, we're talking about a minimalist broadcasting rig that includes a laptop, not a high-powered laptop, just a dual-core laptop, a couple of old cameras, some Easycaps, an inexpensive mixer, and what else have I got here? Yeah, I guess that's about it. Got a question in the chat room. Did you get my email last week? Yes, I got your email last week. I did. In fact, I'm behind on returning my emails and my phone calls, so my apologies to those of you that might be waiting for one. It's first of the year, and tax is our first on the mind right now. Spent the day working on taxes. I have been working on the guest list for this year's show, and if you would like to be a guest, if you're using VidBlaster, it doesn't have to be professionally, can be in an amateur sense, but if you're using VidBlaster, I'd love to hear from you. Drop me a note, and we'll talk and see about getting you on the show. There's a gentleman that whose show I watched, I guess, about a year and a half ago, and Joe does a car show, but his cars are the die-cast variety, and he's got some really interesting cameras that do some high magnification. He's been using VidBlaster for the show since he started it, and so he's going to be on in the next couple of weeks to talk about his show and how he does that. And so that's an interesting part of videography, of doing video of something that's really, really teeny, because obviously I don't have a car here. But if I were doing a show about pens, I would want to show you the little fine points on the pen, and I can't do it just by holding it up to the camera. So Joe's going to come in and show us how he does that kind of stuff. And that you never know when those kind of tips and tricks come in handy for you. All right, so let's see. So that's Dave coming up in a couple of weeks. We also probably will go back and check in on some of our guests that we had in the first part of the 2012 part of that VidBlaster Guy. Go back and check on some of our talk show guys, some of our sports guys, and some of our church broadcasting guys, and see how they're doing and see what changes that they have been made. Got a question in the chat room about lighting, and that's a great question because I was just talking with my pastor about that this morning before I did my setup. And let me pull that video back up here, and we'll run it back a little bit to see where we can see some of the lighting that's in this particular room. Oh, hang on a second. We'll get to it. There we go. And all the lights are not on in this particular room right now. And even when they are, this room is not particularly well lit. I don't know if you can see down in the altar area on the far end of the room, a lot of what appear to be sort of recessed lights in the ceiling. And the fact that they all have kind of beams. Well, somebody has used the wrong light bulbs there. They've put in exterior spotlights like you would use on the outside of a building for illuminating your driveway or a walkway or something like that, so somebody doesn't trip and fall. And those are the wrong lights in those situations. So they end up casting a pretty extreme shadow right down over the face of the person that would be speaking up front. And I'm working with them on replacing those with some bulbs that don't focus the light down so much, but send it out in a little bit of a wider pattern, maybe a little bit more lumens in those places. And again, we'll go back to that shot. I'm not sure you can see it in the ceiling, but there is a light bar that runs across the center of the room. There are 5 or 6 lights on that. And the folks that put that in actually put that in so it was shining straight down on all the people they were trying to illuminate. So we need to go back and fix that and actually move that back about 15 or 20 feet so we're getting that light kind of cascading down on the speaker from the front. It's an advantage for me. I mean, that's my church, and I've been with the church since it started. I know the pastor intimately. I know I've served on the board, and I can go in and say, okay, folks, let's make these kind of changes. We can figure out that it's not going to cost a lot, and this is how we can probably pay for it. And so we're able to make those kind of changes for not a lot of money. But lighting is critical, and having done some tests with my pastor and found out that his vestments, his white vestments, we're an Anglican church, white vestments were very bright, but just almost a sinister shadow over his face, and that's not the kind of image that we want him to project, nor does he want to project. So lighting in that sense, in that controlled environment, is really important. Now, in a sporting event, you've got what you got. I love broadcasting a daytime soccer match because the colors are so vibrant. The grass is so green. The jerseys are so bright. The action looks much better when you've got daylight. When you move into to a nighttime situation, it depends on how well lit that particular venue is. If it's got good lighting, then you're okay. If it's got poor lighting, then you're not. I mean, it's just, there's not a whole lot you can do about that. And again, we're talking about from a minimalist standpoint, that is using whatever camera you can get. As you begin to grow up in your setup and you say, okay, I've got some sponsorship money and I want to upgrade my cameras, then you want to look at the Lux LUX settings, I mean, the LUS specifications of the cameras, because that's the measurement of how it does in low light. I think the lower number is better, but don't quote me on that. You need to verify that one. And so you're looking for the lux setting on the cams, because that will get you cameras that do better in low light situations. If you're thinking about getting into the business, for example, I think a great business for somebody that's a wedding photographer or a wedding videographer, to add a live stream to it. Then you know, especially a photographer, he's got a flash. A videographer may have some lights he's setting up. Probably not. If he's a videographer, he's probably halfway there. But lighting, again, becomes that kind of difficult situation where you can't really control the environment quite as much, especially if it's a one-time, one-shot location, as opposed to your own home church, where you might be able to get in and work with some folks about that. So lighting is critical, but it also kind of is what it is, and you just have to learn to work around it. I have noticed in sports, when the lighting is poor, my camera guys, I have to really caution them not to make quick movements with the camera, to instead kind of zoom the camera out and then reframe the shot and then focus back in a little bit, because a quick zoom of a focused shot just becomes a god-awful blur, and nobody appreciates that. Nobody appreciates that. Let's see, we've got another question here in the chat room. After getting everything set up with VidBlaster, what are some ways to get the word out about the show you're doing? Well, that's a great question, Ken. And it really depends so much on who your audience will be. If you have a show that has somewhat of a captive audience, i.e. your home church or your home school football team, basketball team, baseball team, you've probably got access to an email list or a website where you can post notices, those kinds of things. You can even post notices in the venues. I remember, I got to do this. Sorry about this. This is one prop that I should have brought in. Hang on a second. Let me go get it. I'm not leaving the room. I'm going to be right here. Sorry about that. I thought I could describe this to you, but it's a lot more fun to show you. Plus, I've got a ton of them left over. We used to hand this out at the games. Call home. Tell them this game is being televised live on internet TV. And then it had the URL, Sinclair Sports Network. And this call home flyer, we did it in pink, so it was just, ugly, that people would notice it. We've done it in bright orange and lime green. And it was remarkably effective. We'd put it at the gate when people paid for their tickets. And boy, they'd be on the cell phone calling Granny. They weren't calling home. They were calling Pasadena, California to tell Granny to tune in. But the call home got the word out. And something like this it is fairly generic. Call home, tell them this game is being televised live on internet TV. Doesn't identify the game, doesn't identify the venue, doesn't identify the game, the participants, anything. And so it was generic enough that we could use it both at our home venue as well as when we went on the road and when we did tournaments. Sometimes we do a soccer tournament where we do 10 games in a day. Boy, we were videoing for 14, 15 hours during the day. And so we'd have a stack of these at the at the gate, and folks would come in, and inevitably they would call home and tell folks to watch. And that's how we began to build our audience. I don't know that I would do this for my church, but you could have an announcement placed in the bulletin if there were a handout that was made at the service. And it really, again, it's from a church standpoint, my thought is the people that you want to reach are the people that can't be there because they're sick, or can't be there because they're traveling, or can't be there because they've moved and they don't live there anymore, but they want to keep up on what's going on. And those folks, you probably have a way to communicate with them already. And then there's the fourth category for churches. That is, people who have never set foot in the door but want to see what it looks like without having to get in there to see, how wild and crazy are these people. And in those cases, you want to make sure that that's available on your website, the church website. If you do any kind of advertising in newspapers, a lot of churches will put the schedule of their services in the newspaper. You can just, simply, watch live and give the URL. So there are lots of ways to do that when you've got that kind of tie to your audience. Now, let's say that you want to start out your own internet broadcast talk show about, let's pick a subject about office supplies, because you just think that notebooks and binders and staplers are the coolest thing in the whole world. And oh, by the way, you have a company that sells those. And so you want to begin to develop shows that show people how to best use the supplies that they would use in their office, or come up with creative use for the things that they already have. I think from a business standpoint, that's a great idea. Number one, you're giving people other reasons to buy your stuff. And number two, you're telling them, hey, you are the knowledgeable, you are the expert, the professional in this field, because not only are you selling it, but you're making it available for folks to tell them how to use it. Kind of like this show. And so you want to get that show found. In order to do that, you need to do this same thing, but in a different way. That is, you need to leave these little breadcrumbs in places where people will find them. And one of the ways that's worked for me, and I think some of you that are watching right now will attest to it, and those of you that are watching on YouTube will probably attest to it too, is that by me putting a video of this show on YouTube, a lot of folks search YouTube like they might search Google or Yahoo and type in internet broadcasting, type in Wirecast, type in TriCaster, type in sports broadcasting instant replay, and boom, a lot of times this show will pop up. Maybe not this particular show, but one of the episodes that we've done or one of the demos that we've done. And so we're kind of leaving those breadcrumbs out there for people to find. They'll find one breadcrumb, and then that one leads to all the others, because if I haven't said it already, I want you to go to our archives and see all the other shows that we've done. And there's also a special part of our website called Tips and Tricks. You'll want to take a look at that, because basically I've pulled out all the little demos that we've done and sort of organized them. So if you want to know how to do live text, for example, you can go there, and there's a link there to how to do live text. That's it. The best advice I've got is to do a heavy brainstorming session and say, the audience that I want, where do they eat? Where do they drink? Where do they shop? Where does their mind run? And how can I put myself in that place so that they'll find me? And then just keep putting yourself out there. Keep putting yourself out there. And, there's always the person that says, oh, I'm going to do this show, and the show is an instant hit and has thousands of viewers. And I think that's the anomaly. I think more likely it's a show that you engage your audience in on a regular basis. You become friends with them. You know them. They know you. It becomes a partnership almost with your audience. And, you've got a lot of stake in bringing them information and a little bit of entertainment too along the way. Let's see if we've got some other questions here in the chat room. I've had a hard time using the keying effect with an animated lower third. I did keying with someone in front of a green screen like you're doing right now, but with a video over live or recorded, just didn't work. Well, if you're watching live, you can see in the chat room that Yana Kala has put a link to the VidBlaster wiki that talks about creating overlays. And we actually open and close our show with an overlay. In fact, why don't I show you that as an example right now. We're going to go to black, and I'm going to just drag it through. We're not going to really play it, but that's how our show opens, and then it fades from that. Where's the fader part? There we go. To a green screen, and then that's me. I mean, this is what it looks like on VidBlaster, but this is what you see at home, because that's the green screen effect. And it's actually sort of like a chroma key within a chroma key, because this is the real shot of me in front of my green screen. So it's not really hard. It does take a little practice, and maybe I ought to do a little demo on that. Yeah, I'll see if I can't work up a demo of that and include it in a show here in the future. But that's a great question. Oh, and Jan is saying that the article includes a YouTube clip with me as an example. Well, thank you, Jan. Boy, that's always nice. Chroma key and a chroma key. One of the nice things about VidBlaster, and we're kind of getting off subject here, but is the ability to I call it nesting. You remember those Russian nesting dolls where you open up the doll and there's a little smaller doll inside of it, and you open that up and there's another one inside that, and you can go on 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 times depending on the size of the doll. Well, in some ways you can do that same effect with the VidBlaster video effect module. That's probably the most powerful module in VidBlaster, because that's where the chroma key is, that's where the picture-in-picture is, that's where the dual, triple, and quad camera setup is. So you can have all sorts. This is not a well done, but this is, an example of 2 PIPs, picture-in-picture, that I put side by side. The one on the right, of course, is intended for a Skype screen capture, but that's the video effect module, and 2 of the sources in that are other video effect modules. So you end up stacking one on top of the other and kind of building it. In some ways, similar to the way Wirecast builds a shot. All right, let's see. David asked, oh, that's just some inner chat conversation. What color is the lower third? Well, solid green is the best if that's what you're working with, but you can really key to any color. That's one of the beauties of VidBlaster, is it allows you to pick your key. Greens and blues are generally easiest. I tend to wear a lot of blue just naturally, and so I stick with green, but my friend Amnon Nissan, who wears a flight suit, which is green, would be invisible, at least most of him would be, so he uses a blue drop behind him. Let's see what else we've got for you. I think we've about covered everything for the show today. Oh, I know one other thing I was going to tell you. It's funny that we're doing a show today on a minimalist approach, and if you've joined us late, go back and watch us in the archives. I'll have this show up in a little while, and I'll walk through all the different piece parts that we do in our $800 or less complete broadcasting rig. But I'm building a PC for a friend who does a lot of sports broadcasting, and isn't that funny? He's a friend. He's a client too, but he's a friend most importantly. And we are going to cram it with all sorts of goodies. A hat tip to Sheldon Neal for talking about his use of SSDs, solid state drives, in his PCs to support the VidBlaster Video Replay version 3, which is the slow motion version replay and allows you to save clips for the whole game and then play them again at the end of the game. Excuse me. And hat tip, Richard. Thanks. Glad you joined us. And so I've got some PC cases over there, not big, little teeny cases, and got to cram as many SSDs inside as I can. A lot of RAM, big processor. And then a terabyte spin-in drive to use as strictly an archive drive, so that you can save it. You'll save it to that archive drive, but your SSDs will be where all your programs are located, and will be also the sort of scratch or temporary drives for the video replay. And it will be about yay big, so it will be very inobtrusive. And it will sell for about $3,000, $3,200 plus whatever VidBlaster you want on it. We'll probably put the studio version on that one, although he may want to upgrade to the broadcast after he's had the studio for a while. Let's see, any other questions here? I'm new to VidBlaster, but I've been testing a lot of things. By all means, test. You know, I'm a fan of VidBlaster, and of course I would think VidBlaster probably would be best, but test for your specific instance. For example, if you're a Mac guy, VidBlaster only runs on Mac through Boot Camp, and so that may not be to your liking. But if you're a Windows guy, I think you'll really like VidBlaster, because I think it does the best job within the budget of what we're talking about. You know, software that retails anywhere from $200 to $2,000. That's a pretty big spread. But the beauty of VidBlaster is that you can start with the home version at $195, and when you say, oh, 7 modules is not enough, I want to do this, this, and this. Now that I know how to use it, I'd like to do green screen. I'd like to do animated overlays, and I need more modules, and I want to upgrade to the Pro version. Well, the Pro version retails for $495, but with VidBlaster you get 100% credit for what you've already spent. So retail at $495 minus the $195 you've already paid. So you just pay the difference in price for the upgrade. It's really cool. Hat tip to Mike Versteeg with VidBlaster for organizing his upgrades in that manner. I think that's a great way to do it. I wish some of the other software companies would see the same benefits. Have I considered running for office? David. Oh, David. Yes, we have to get David Stemper on the show and talk about how he promoted himself. I'll give you a little tip because we're running out of time, but we've got just a second. David said, if you're in a small community and you want to get name recognition, run for office. It almost doesn't matter what office it is. Get your name on the ballot. Spend, I think David said he spent $1,800 on his campaign. His opponent spent $35,000 on their campaign, and of course I don't know, David, that you got shellacked, but I understand you didn't win. But suddenly everybody knew who he was because he was a candidate for office, and that happened to help his web design business because people became aware of who he was. He had name recognition. When he went in to talk to people about website design, they already knew his name. They may not have known how they knew his name, but he was a name brand at that point, and he branded himself. So that might be he got 33% of the vote. Okay, I'm looking here on the website. That's great. 33%. That's huge, man, for $1,800 compared to $3,500. So think about that as a way to promote yourself. And then Martin S. is saying that there is an interesting SSD SATA HDD adapter for a DVD bay. Really? To give every notebook a second hard disk drive. I'll have to look that up. If I can find out some more about that, I'll pop that in to a future show. That's great. And Jan is saying, sorry, we're doing a little just chat room chat now. I thought the reason to run for office was to get all your family tree researched. Oh, that's great. The problem, it depends on the family. The problem may be that you've got that long lost cousin or uncle or second cousin that is fallen upon hard times and decided that they want to come live with you. So you want to be careful about that. Anyway. Well, folks, I appreciate you spending time with us this afternoon. For those of you that watched us on YouTube, thank you for watching all the way through to the end. And we invite you to come join us next week and every week when we are live doing that VidBlaster Guy, 3 o'clock Eastern and 8 o'clock in London. Not sure if it's next week, but coming up soon, we're going to have Joe the Car Guy on to talk about his show where he shows off the miniature the die-cast models. And for all you car guys out there, you won't want to miss that. And for you camera guys out there too, he's got some interesting ways. Apparently there's a USB cam that is a microscope. Okay, we'll have to go with that. We'll figure that out. But Happy New Year to all. And let's see if we can't, oh golly, we got to get our exit queued up here. And we don't have them. Oh golly, that's from not being prepared. I thought I had my post-show credits there. Oh well, we'll give this one a try and we'll send you out with this. Have a great day.